Quante volte ci è stato detto che se una ragazza viene stuprata deve poter abortire? Quante volte ci hanno detto che chi nasce da cose orribili come la violenza sarà condannato all'infelicità e la loro vita non sia degna di essere vissuta? Ebbene, oggi abbiamo qui con noi una testimonianza straordinaria che conferma che la vita sa rimarginare anche le ferite più profonde, persino quelle dovute a dolori orribili come la violenza. Rebecca Kiessling, concepita da uno stupro e sopravvissuta ad un aborto clandestino, grazie alla fortuna di essere nata in un tempo e in un luogo in cui ancora questo omicidio non era stato legalizzato.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Kiessling. I'm an international pro-life speaker, attorney, writer. I'm the founder and president of Save the One, a global pro-life organization made up of over 1,000 who were conceived and raped like me and mothers who became pregnant by rape. I was conceived when my birth mother was abducted at knife point by a serial rapist. She went to 2 illegal abortions and I was almost aborted, and I owe my life to the law which protected me. Punish rapists, not babies, and join me in protecting all children. Thank you.
Ciao Rebecca, oggi siamo estremamente onorati di averti qui. Dunque, stavamo dicendo che appunto
Alcune persone
dicono che se una ragazza viene stuprata deve avere il diritto di abortire e ci piacerebbe molto sapere, dal tuo punto di vista, che messaggio manderesti a queste persone.
There are people who would say that if a girl has been raped, she should have a right to abort. And there's some things that people need to understand. First of all, rapists, sex traffickers, and child molesters love abortion because it destroys the evidence and it protects the perpetrator and enables them to continue raping. Oftentimes, a girl has been raped for years before she gets pregnant, and it is the baby who reveals the rape and who delivers her out of that abusive situation. Sadly, oftentimes a girl's own mother has been either trafficking her or leaving her unprotected and will take her to an abortion clinic in order to protect her boyfriend or her husband or another family member, or to protect herself and her own reputation. I want people to care about rape victims who become pregnant. My own dear mother is a rape victim who became pregnant, and my best friends in life are. But it is absurd to think that more violence in her body, in the exact place where she's already been traumatized, is somehow going to bring her healing. It does not. But a baby does have a way of bringing healing. It's something good coming out of something awful. The baby helps a rape victim to overcome the rape. The other thing that I want people to understand is that why would you punish the innocent child for someone else's crime? That's barbaric. In a civilized society, you punish perpetrators, not innocent children. And it is absolutely antiquated to go back to days of child sacrifice. That's what's barbaric. That's what's antiquated. Child sacrifice, punishing innocent people for someone else's crime. And then I ask people, would you support a law which would authorize rape victims to be able to pay someone to kill her rapist, or just her innocent child? Because that's what abortion is. Abortion is a paid hit, as we say. Abortion doctors are paid assassins. And can you imagine if there were a legislator who proposed a law that would allow any rape victim to just say she was raped and then pay someone to kill her rapist? all of a sudden a lot of men would say, whoa, 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 wait a second, not so fast. Yet you have no problem with a woman just being able to say she was raped and go in and kill the innocent baby. Again, that's barbaric.
Come possono le persone che non hanno mai sperimentato lo stupro aiutare le donne stuprate a scegliere la vita anziché l'aborto?
Rape victims need real help, not abortion. My own birth mother had been abducted at knife point by a serial rapist, and she told me that there were no pro-life pregnancy resource centers back then. And the only choice that she was given was abortion, even though it was illegal. The rape counselor that the police had sent her to arranged for this illegal abortion, and it was a doctor's office. She just had to go through the back door, and it was filthy, like many abortion clinics today where it's legal. As you can imagine, the best doctors are not wanting to kill babies on a daily basis for a living, and so they're not the most ethical people. And she backed out because of fear for her own safety, and then my birth mother went to a second illegal abortion, and I was almost aborted. And again, it was concern for her own safety that caused her to back out. And she said that if there had been a pro-life pregnancy resource center, if anyone had offered her any other help, she would have gone. But she told me that nobody offered her any other help or hope, just abortion. Most abortions are fear-driven, but especially for rape victims to become pregnant. And so they need real help. They need you to hear their voices, to hear their fears, hear their concerns, and then provide them life-giving options. Oftentimes, a woman just needs to know that you believe in her and that she is capable of great love. The myth is that a rape victim couldn't possibly love the rapist child, and she needs to hear that this is her child, that he has no rights to this child whatsoever, and that she's a good woman and she's capable of love, that you know that she's a loving, caring person. And a lot of rape victims express that after first contemplating abortion, they realize that they're no longer alone, and that this child is like the little angel who keeps them company. Oftentimes after being raped, victims don't engage in self-care. Many of them express that they feel like a sense of darkness and that there's been a death, and they feel like their body is dead. But when they become pregnant, what the mothers in our organization express is that there's now this light inside of them, and they marvel at the fact that inside this dead body is a baby, is life growing, that somehow this dead body is growing and sustaining life. We have a network of over 1,000 with my organization, Save the One, who were conceived and raped like me, but mostly mothers who became pregnant by rape, who are either raising their children or chose adoption or who regret aborting. And the ones who had the abortion expressed that it was far more difficult to overcome the abortion than it was the rape, that it was just more violence inside of their bodies, and it traumatized them even more. And they were no longer dealing with what had been done to them, but now they were having to deal with what they did to their own child. And so women need real help. And I hope that you'll step up and see ways that you can encourage women and protect them from the rapist and from the abortion, but not the baby. The baby is not the scary enemy.
Come possiamo spiegare ai giuristi, che di solito sono abituati a fare una distinzione tra diritto e moralità, che l'aborto non è mai giustificabile, nonostante dagli ordinamenti giuridici l'embrione non sia considerato un essere vivente e quindi nemmeno come persona titolare di diritti fondamentali.
Despite what some people will argue, science is that an unborn child is in fact a living human being. No matter how they were conceived, that doesn't change the scientific fact that they're very much alive and that they are human. Even frozen embryos. I, as an attorney, represented the mother in Michigan's frozen embryo case. It was the first in Michigan and the third in the United States at the time. And the doctors at the IVF clinic, in vitro fertilization clinic, testified under oath in deposition that these one-cell organisms are in fact living human beings. That is just science. It's embryology 101. In the United States, the debate is over whether, not that whether they're living human beings, but whether they are juridical persons, because our Constitution says that no state shall deprive a person of their right to life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's where the right to life comes from in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. But it doesn't say no state shall deny a living human being their right to life. It doesn't say man, it doesn't say woman, it says person. And so that's why this has all been about what we call personhood and the recognition of preborn children as persons. And then the other part of the 14th Amendment says that no state shall deny a person equal protection of the law. And that's why when you're talking about children conceived in rape, you cannot discriminate, because that is denying equal protection. I am a person, and I am just as worthy of love and life as anyone else. I like to show people, look, there's no horns. Despite what children like us get characterized as. I get called demon seed, evil seed, rapist child, never rape victim's child, and that's what I am. I'm the child of a rape victim, but we don't get called that. We get called rapist child. And Satan's spawn. I've been called rape trophy. Like I'm promoting rape. And I tell people, look, you can be pro law enforcement and not be pro-crime, even though it's true that if it weren't for crime, there'd be no law enforcement. It's absurd. And that's what they try to suggest. I've literally had people tell me that if I cared at all for my birth mother, I would have killed myself a long time ago. And I can value my life and not be pro-rape. I am the good that came out of evil. And people need to understand that. They need to understand how hateful it is, the way they dehumanize people like me and suggesting that we are not persons just because of our conception. They call us the difficult cases. No, the people who would discriminate against us are the difficult cases because they are the ones with the hardened hearts.
Come hai reagito quando hai scoperto di essere nata da uno stupro? È stato da quel momento in poi che hai iniziato la tua battaglia per la vita?
I was 18 years old when I learned how I was conceived, and I was 19 when I met my birth mother, and I learned the horrible details. She had been abducted at knife point by a serial rapist. She went to 2 illegal abortions, and I was almost aborted. I literally owe my birth to the law which protected me, because abortion was still illegal until 3.5 years after I was born. And she did not choose life for me. She chose abortion. I felt completely devastated when I learned these difficult truths. And she was pro-choice when we met, so she maintained that it should have been her right until 6 years later when she changed her mind about abortion. And now, decades later, we are both so thankful that we were both protected, that we were both spared from the horror of abortion. It was my atheist Jewish grandmother who taught me her pro-life values growing up. My grandfather had wanted my grandmother to abort my aunt, and I was horrified when I learned this. And I was so angry that my grandfather had wanted my aunt to be killed. My grandmother cried and she said, "I never loved him again after that. How could they do that? How could they kill the babies?" She'd say over and over again for years. And so I learned from her that abortion is definitely a bad thing. My aunt's daughter aborted my grandmother's first great-grandchild when my cousin was 16 years old, and it devastated my grandmother. She felt completely betrayed, but she had kept the family secret up to that point, that my grandfather had wanted my aunt to be aborted. And I just think that maybe my aunt, maybe my cousin, would have valued life more if they had known that story growing up, and maybe she would not have aborted her child. And so this was not a theoretical discussion for me. I had a face to the issue, and I understood that it's these true stories that touch the heart in ways in which arguments cannot. A lot of people like to maintain this as a philosophical discussion, so it's far removed, so it's remote. But true stories like mine, like my aunt, can help remind us that we are talking about real people. This is not a mere debate, philosophical discussion. Growing up, I learned that most of my Jewish family, my adoptive family, had been killed in the Holocaust. And I grew up knowing that there's such hatred which exists in the world, that there are people who are willing to kill innocent others for no offense of theirs. And that's how I felt when I learned how I was conceived. I realized that I was targeted for no offense of mine. According to the United States Supreme Court, rapists don't deserve the death penalty. And in the second case, they said even for child molesters, it's cruel and unusual punishment. So how is it that I, the innocent child, deserved the death penalty for his crime? And I knew at 18 that I would forever be in a position where I would have to defend my right to life. And I've had people literally ask me to tell them what good I've done in my life to justify what I did to my mother. And I clarify for them that I was not raping my mother. I was innocent. I plead my innocence. And today I know my value, identity, and purpose. And I am whole. And I don't fight this issue to justify my own existence, to prove my own worth, because I know my worth. But it's out of gratitude for my own life being spared, that I was protected, that I seek to do the same for others who are just as worthy of love and life as I was, as you are. And I hope you'll join me in doing the same.
Dato che sei stata nel movimento pro-life per molto tempo, quali consigli ci daresti? Esistono modi migliori di altri per rendere la nostra battaglia più forte e incisiva?
I'm so grateful for everyone who wants to join the battle, who's willing to defend the most innocent, the least of these, the child conceived in rape, and also children with fetal abnormalities, because we are the groups that are targeted the most, and it's our lives that are used always as the argument to justify all abortions. So it's very important to be equipped and to know how to give a good response. It's important to know our stories. So with my organization I founded, Save the One, we have a global network of over 1,000 who were conceived in rape or incest or sex trafficking like me, and mothers who became pregnant by rape. On our blog, we have about 250 stories. And we started a Spanish division. So we have a Spanish blog with hundreds of stories. We actually have a book in Spanish with over 70 stories. Half of those stories are from Latin America. On our Spanish page, Salvar el Uno, we have about 95,000 followers. And we don't pay for likes, and that's only in about 4 years. I'm sharing this because I hope that, first of all, if there's any of you who are fluent in English, I would love for you to translate our stories in Italian. My story has already been translated into Italian. But I told my friends on our Spanish team that if you translate these stories, more and more of them, and we start a Spanish blog and a Spanish page, women will come forward and share their stories. And they said, oh, no. Americans are different. Women in Spain, women in Latin America, they don't share like women do in America. And I explained, I was alone for 10 years before I finally met someone else who was conceived in rape. And as I shared my story and started to meet others and asked them to write out their stories for my website, more and more came forward and had the courage because they saw our stories. And that's exactly what happened with our Spanish page. The same thing can happen in Italian. So if you're interested, contact me. I would love to make these stories available in Italian. And then you can have women from Italy who will no longer feel alone, or men who are conceived in rape, and they'll come forward, share their stories, and then you'll have to translate them into English so that I can share them to our English page. So I hope that you would consider doing that. And if you don't speak Italian, at least read my story in Italian and share it, make it available. Share this video, make it available, because it's stories that pierce the heart in ways in which arguments cannot. We have a 5-state study done on this issue. It's the only study ever done on messaging, answering the question, what about in cases of rape? And people were surveyed in this 1-hour online interactive study. They were surveyed at the beginning, halfway through, and at the end. And we could demonstrate that we could dramatically shift people's opinion on this issue. But they were surveyed what the most effective messaging was. And it demonstrated that stories of women who were conceived in rape and women who became pregnant by rape are the most compelling. And then the sense of justice, that was the most compelling pure argument. This sense of justice, that in a civilized society, you do not punish innocent people for someone else's crime. We always use the hashtag, punish rapists, not babies. Punish rapists, not babies. And then we also use a hashtag, rapists love abortion, because people really need to understand that aspect of it. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me. Thank you so much.
Grazie Rebecca, è stato davvero un onore averti qui con noi. Parole colme di coraggio e di significato, una bellissima donna dentro e fuori, che oggi ha dato a noi un messaggio importantissimo. Infatti Rebecca ci insegna che per quanto sia stato orribile il modo in cui sia stata concepita, la sua vita non valeva meno delle altre.
Spero vivamente che le sue parole possano raggiungere le orecchie e i cuori giusti.
D'altronde ci hanno sempre insegnato che la nostra libertà finisce dove inizia quella di un altro. Allora perché la libertà della madre non finisce dove inizia la vita del figlio? Avete paura e siete sole? Chiedete aiuto. Scegliere la vita è possibile e nessuna madre si è mai pentita di aver dato alla luce il proprio figlio. La verità è che non esiste vita indegna di essere vissuta, ma soltanto una debolezza umana incapace di accoglierla.
Detto ciò, la prima puntata di Pillole di Vita è conclusa, ma io spero di vedervi alla prossima occasione con altrettante storie piene di vita e di speranza.